Grammy-nominated poet, she's a spoken word artist, author, speaker, curator, host, DJ, dog mom, many other things. She's founder of the Poetry versus Hip Hop LLC. She's an adjunct professor at Clark Atlanta University in creative writing and English. She's a Grammy U mentor. She's an African American delegate for the Israeli Office of Foreign Ministry Social Impact Education of Israel, National Poetry Slam champion, Southern Fried Regional Poetry Slam champion, Women of the World finalist, Individual World Poetry Slam finalist, NAACP Image Award nominee, Furious Flower Poetry Grant recipient, Patreon Artist Grant recipient, and a Lululemon Legacy Ambassador. So give a warm welcome to Queen Sheba.
Hi. Woo! I'm gonna sit and talk with you guys like this. Is that okay?
Would you like the mic?
Do I need the mic or can y'all drop me right? I think that would be okay.
All right. If you change your mind, it's on in this right.
Okay. All right, Micah, come up here. This is my brother Micah.
Hey y'all.
And I'm glad y'all have t-shirts, but I'm gonna give everybody a t-shirt at the end for y'all coming to participate. How are you? Good. What's your name? Alexa, do you use the poetry too? Oh, good. That's exactly how it starts, right? You start drifting off in class and you're like, I'd rather be writing poetry. Yes, that's how it was for me at work, and then I got fired. But then I embarked on this amazing world of poetry and spoken word, and I've been doing that for 23 years. So I'm really excited to be here at the Montgomery County Library with you all. It's a beautiful rec center or a gym. I like working out, so I hope you guys are coming to get your steps on. And I have known Jaime for 23 years, so about 25 years. And it is because of people like him and my brother Micah, who also works in the DC Public Library system, that remember me, remember other artists, and bring us up from our homes to come and share poetry and spoken word with you all. Do you all listen to poetry or spoken word anywhere else? Yeah? A little bit? It's okay if you don't. It's okay if the answer is no, because it's not something that we listen to on the radio every day, right? I was just talking to a friend of mine saying it's wonderful to be Grammy nominated and so weird to be Grammy nominated because our songs aren't even on the radio. And that's where they get all the Grammy nominations from, right? Is everybody who's playing on the radio. So it's like, wow, that's kind of cool. So that means people like you and people like Micah and Jaime and everybody else that's involved with bringing this up to this library system, that means they see us on YouTube and social media while we're sharing our poems, and they appreciate our work. So I encourage you all to follow me on social media. My social media is clean, so you can watch my social media as well. And it's usually either about poetry or working out. That's about it. So I'm going to read a few poems, and then not like this is a class where we have to participate, or you don't have to participate, but I would love to know what comes up for you after I read the pieces. Is that okay? Okay. And I know this is the kickoff to Mental Health Week, and that could be a little bit of a stigma, right? As soon as people say mental health, we think, oh gosh, like what are they trying to say? And mental health is just that. It's about health. It's not unhealthy. And I think that's where the stigma comes from. When we say mental health, what we hear is mental unhealthy. But being mentally healthy is something that we try to practice every day. It's eating right and drinking water, fruits and vegetables. But trust me, I love potato chips and chocolate. That's really what my food groups are. And then it's working out, getting your steps in, coming to the gym, or just going outside and being active, right? So that's part of mental health. And then, of course, when you're having a bad day, or maybe having a little bit of a dark cloud following you around for a couple weeks or a couple months, and sometimes people for a couple years, that's when we find professionals and we talk to them about how we're feeling. And I've had to do that my entire life. I started going to therapy at 7 years old, on and off. That's right. On and off since I was 7 years old because I just had a lot of things going on in my life, right? So I grew up in Detroit, and I am biracial, so I'm American Indian and German, that's the white side, and then I'm black, right? So my father was black, and my mother, her father was directly Cherokee Indian from Michigan, and then her mother was German. So I'm absolutely 1/3 Cherokee, German, and African American. So I have that going on in me too. So sometimes I have to talk to people about how do I identify, and who do I identify with, and where do I belong, and who do I talk to, right? And so then after I was born, I was adopted into a white family who was Polish and German, and they were moving to Detroit. So then now my head is really confused. I'm 2.5, 3 years old, and I'm biracial, moving in with this white family who's moving to the city of Detroit, not the suburbs, right? So then I'm in public school. And what do you think the middle schoolers did in public school to this biracial adopted child who lives with white people? Mean! Super mean. They were super mean. They were super mean. And I was smart, right? I was smart, probably like you and you and you, and I could read, and you know, sometimes, you know, other students couldn't read as well, and so I was made fun of for being smart and articulate and being able to read and being able to talk about my feelings, and then I became an athlete. And that's another way that you can handle mental health, is doing ballet or tennis or whatever that it is that you like to do to kind of burn off that extra energy. How many of you have trouble sleeping at night? I saw your hand like, right, exactly. I do every single night at my age right now. So I try to get in my steps. I try to go walk. I have a German Shepherd puppy, so I try to get her out for her 2.5, 3 mile walk, and that helps me. It helps my brain calm down. And no, I don't want to work. No, I don't want to read a book. No, I just want to stare at the TV. I want to stare at Netflix for like 3 to 5 hours straight in the middle of the night, right? But there's other things that we can do, and that's where your brain is going faster. That's when your brain is going faster than your body wants to. Your body wants to relax and go to sleep, right? And so your brain is just on. It's just thinking about your homework, thinking about what you have to do next day, thinking about your homework, thinking about who you got to see and who you got to visit and all those things. And what's one thing you think you could do while you're lying in bed trying to get your brain to relax? Journal. That's perfect. You can journal. That way it gets from your head onto the piece of paper, right? And so you said you do poetry sometimes on the back of your work at school. That's cool. Do you write a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
That's fine. It's fine if you don't. And journaling or writing a poem is exhausting. It exhausts me mentally. So journaling is perfect. That way you can get out all the thoughts that are going on in your head, and you never have to show them or share them, or you don't have to make a list or anything like that, but it helps to calm your brain down. What's another thing that we could do while we're lying in bed? Stay still. Turn off the lights. Turn off the TV. Turn off the noise, right? And there's all these new apps that we have. You can use rain noise, right? Rain always makes me go to sleep. You know another one that I found that I didn't think I would like, but I do? Whales. I know, right? It's really interesting. And at first I was like, because it was my first time hearing it, so I was laying in bed like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, right? But if you just give it a second, it's very calming. Whale sounds. Try it. Try it tonight. So, and then you can put it on iTunes if you have iTunes, or Apple Music if you have an iPhone, and if you silly people have Androids, then you can use YouTube, and you can put it on loop until you fall asleep. And so that's another thing that you can do. Journaling is perfect, getting out your thoughts, meditating, and not meditating where you actually have to sit up and then cross your legs, and no, just meditate, cross your hands in front of you or put them on your chest. Another thing that my aunt told me, which is really interesting, is that you take note of your body parts. Start at your head and go all the way to your toes. And I bet you do not make it through your whole body, and you wake up in the morning like, where was it? On my elbow? But I mean every single little thing, like from your hair, in your forehead, in the middle of your forehead, in your eyebrows, in your eyelashes, in your body. And then for whatever reason, it just gets all those other rambling thoughts out of your mind, and it makes you concentrate, and you probably get to your arm or elbow, and then you knock out. It's weird. I don't know. I don't know why it works. My aunt told me to do it. I did it, and it works. So those are just some ways that you can calm your brain at night. So I'm going to read a few poems, and I'll read one or two, and then we'll stop and talk about how you feel about them. How's that?
Yeah, the mic right there.
Okay, yeah.
I'll do that. All right. We're going to start with, sometimes my poems can be heavy. Let's see. Let's start with something fun-ish. Okay. So, after I moved from Detroit, Michigan, I was in a youth home for 2 years, from the time I was 15 to 17. It was cool, I actually liked it. And I was telling I told Wheaton High School this yesterday, I'm a tad bit neurodiverse. Does everybody know what that means? Okay. And I like structure, I like rules. They don't bother me at all, because rules help me understand what to do and what not to do. It helps you, and boundaries, sometimes friendships can get a little uncomfortable when people set boundaries. I like them. Tell me your boundaries so I know what lines not to cross, because to me it's a matter of respect. So then you say, hey, this is my boundary, and I'm like, okay, now I understand where you feel like disrespect starts. So if I cross this line, that means I'm being disrespectful, and I don't want to be disrespectful to you or to my friends. And so I'm like, okay, I understand that I stay on this. I like rules. To me, perfect. I get it. So I'll do a short story first. This one is called Civil Rights Comes to Pizza Hut. Now, there is a little bit of a curse word in here. I will skip. I will not curse. I just know that it's the replacement, so you don't think I'm being like weird, trying to make up a weird word. All right. So this one is called Civil Rights Comes to Pizza Hut. This one is called Civil Rights Comes to Pizza Hut. Super short story, just 2 pages. So I already told you that I was adopted. So this was a story about how. So I had an older brother and a younger brother, and my mother and father. So if I say mother, father, and brothers, that's who I'm referring to. I do not know my biological family at all, okay? So when we would go out, and like I said, I lived in the city of Detroit, when we would go out, if I would go out with just my mother, what would people think? If it was just me and my mom, what would you think people would assume? That's my mom, and what else? And that I'm biracial, exactly, right. They would assume that the father just, was at home or something and he happened to be black. Or if I just happened to go out with my dad and nobody else, then they assume my mother was black, right? So, interestingly enough, and I am saying this out loud for the first time ever, I preferred it that way. I preferred when I went out with my parents if it was just one. Because living in the city of Detroit, when I went out with both parents, there was always stares and questions. It was like, what's happening? What is the situation? Do we need to save her? Like, what's happening, right? So, and then when we went out with my whole family, my older brother, my younger brother, my mom, and my dad, a lot of times, more often than you would imagine, people would say, so there's 5 of us. So we would go to a restaurant, and people would say, how many? 4? And I'd be like, I'm sitting. And so keep in mind that I was adopted from the time I was 2.5 until I was 15. So the 12 years, your most important formative years, that's when you learn yourself and who you're going to be when you grow up. And so I guess I learned I was going to be a rebel, but didn't know it. So here is Civil Rights Comes to Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut, of all places, it wasn't like it was some fancy French restaurant in the burbs that would totally be oblivious to any situation like this. Pizza Hut? I couldn't believe we were at Pizza Hut for this information anyway. This kind of family gathering should have happened at a restaurant where after you left the tip, the waiter could fill up his gas tank. Pizza it was. The other thing that killed me was there wasn't anyone else standing there waiting to be seated. So how could that woman how could that chick, that's what I'm gonna say. So how could that chick not have noticed that we were together? There were 6 of us, including my older brother's girlfriend, who became a permanent member of our family after the second year of dating. Oh my God, I hated her. I hated all of them. Almost 13 years of waiting to be recognized, 13 years of waiting to belong, 13 years of waiting to be acknowledged as a selected individual, not in addition to be molded. I was still waiting. I was angry all the time and was looking for any opportunity for an outburst. So here was my small moment of glory. It couldn't have been much later than 6 o'clock. My father routinely got home from work around 4:30, and I got home from track practice around 5:15. When a school bus driver saw me running in 3 feet of midwinter Michigan snow to catch the last ride to school, he quickly suggested I join his citywide track team to relieve some of my cultural frustrations on the track, not on my ethnically challenged family. I remember changing my clothes quickly because my mother informed me on the way in the door that we were going out for dinner. I ran upstairs to clean up and smooth some lotion over my bronze skin that turned ash in the shower. I fumbled with the brush as I smoothed back my bushy black hair into a braid that hung past my shoulders. I wasn't allowed to get a relaxer until I was 16. My mother learned from our next door neighbor that relaxers tend to fry virgin hair if applied too young. I had 2 years to go. I hurried downstairs and my mother was tying up her stringy brown hair that she inherited from the German side of her family. Not that our family couldn't afford it, but my mother cooked 7 days a week, and going out to dinner was definitely considered a treat. So we get there. Pizza Hut around 6 p.m. I'm in an even mood, not up or down, but always anticipating. I remember it being bright outside and all of Pizza Hut was lit up. It had to be summer. In the north, it stays light out late in the summer, and I don't remember wearing a coat. I hate wearing a coat, so I would have remembered. Longer than we should have, but not long enough for my father to say anything, was how long we waited until this $2.12 Macon, thinking she has control over how long we waited for her 2-bit, half-greeting chick came up and said what would have been fatal words for her if my so-called family wasn't standing there. My father at the time was 6 feet 2 inches tall and at least 250 pounds. He had thinning salt and pepper hair. He swooped to one side of his head. He was going through midlife I'm not really balding denial period. Despite the shiny spot that was the first to sunburn in the summer, he was a man of stature. What he said, I respected, followed, but not always agreed with. Like this: there was hardly any other customers in the restaurant. I guess it being Monday, pizza, after a junk food weekend, was not high on everybody's list for dinner. This chick walked up like she desperately needed some help with the other table that came in for fine dining this evening and grabbed some menus out of the wooden folder. Her strides were short and fast. It looked like she was trying not to break out into a small gallop. It was the middle of summer, and when she took her forearm to wipe the sweat off her brow, I noticed her palm and forehead were the same color. Her chalky skin made me realize she looked like she had been locked in a closet for a year. Her bleached blonde ponytail was filthy with grease and it stuck together as it bounced back and forth in the rubber band that was holding it behind her head. Now I was leaning. I thought we had waited too long, and I was anxious to hear the news my father had called this so important meeting for. My father's torso was directly in front of me, lucky for the chick, and I don't remember who was standing next to me, but it didn't matter. Her pale face flushed red over her freckles, and almost out of breath, the chick glanced over our group and said, "How many? 5? That registered to my always looking for an excuse to blow up that racism brain. All that 13 years of repressed anger for situations like this gone unnoticed flashed across my inner eye like an eclipse. I couldn't take it anymore. I refused to be invisible in a world I obviously was destined to contribute so much to. They chose me to be a part of their family 13 years ago, and it had taken to this very moment for me to arrive. 5? I was literally yelling. My whole family turned to glare at me. I kept going. I didn't care. Still don't. I'm 13, erect now, and trying to push past my father who knew exactly what was going on. 5, I repeated again. You see me standing here. What are you trying to say? Try 6, lady. I tried really hard not to swear, even though my father cursed worse than a sailor did in a normal conversation. Shut up, Beth. My father yelled. They called me Beth then. I could tell my mother was embarrassed. My older brother and his airhead blonde bimbo walked off like they didn't know us. I do remember that $2.12 making woman want to work in a real restaurant server mumbling an apology and correcting herself. It was too late. My mood went from level to escalated in those brief milliseconds, and I didn't care. Glad, I'm sure. Tension, of course, was the appetizer for our pizza, the next very long hour and a half. My father told us that his father, who had recently passed, granddad, had left us a will. Oh God, I thought, we could have made pizza for this. This was the excuse of our outing, a will? After all that, I wasn't even in the thing. Once again, included in separation. They could have left me at home. I had homework anyway. I knew that each day my selected family prayed I would be content and would stay level, never knowing when I was going to blow. My family couldn't understand that in my situation, it was very hard to let anything that seemed like discrimination fly. It got to be too much for me the next year or so. I left on my birthday the following summer and promised myself that even if people were confused for those 15 years, the rest of my life, I would make my position clear. Thank you. Real thing. It makes me nervous inside, right? And you know, sometimes I try to make jokes and they land flat, right? They land flat and I'm like, oh. And then people are just kind of looking at me. Then inside my head, I'm rolling around with those thoughts all over again, right? Then I have anxiety, then I can't sleep, and then I'm up awake, and then I kind of count my body parts to fall asleep, and it's just a circle. So that's why knowing how to have coping mechanisms for when we are younger, it helps when we are adults. Because just like I told Wheaton High School yesterday, adults, we're just taller children. That's all we are. So who you are now and who young people decide you're going to become, that's what you're going to become as an adult. People rarely change fundamentally. What you believe in now is what you will believe in later, unless something magic or you know, traumatic or something else happens. But what you believe in now and what people teach you and what you want to hold on to, that's basically who you're going to become, which is amazing. You're going to believe and do amazing things. All right, so let's see. I'm going to read this one. This one is called Trigger Warning. And I wrote this because I know there are young children here. And so I am on my best behavior. However, when it comes to a regular like city open mic or like at a coffee house or something like that, I let my hair down, so to speak, right? And so I don't necessarily, I'm not even gonna dance around it. I don't believe in trigger warnings, especially in poetry readings. Now I'm at a library, totally different situation. But if you're at your regular community open mic, I don't believe in getting up and saying, hey, this might cause some trauma. Because I believe that the reason the people are there reading in the first place or sharing their poems is because they have been through some trauma that they want to share and hopefully will help you be able to handle that trauma, right? So this poem is called Trigger Warning, and it's dedicated to so many lives that we lost due to police brutality. So I used it as a metaphor. So if you recognize any of these names, snap twice like that. So if you recognize any of these names, just go like that. Does that make sense? Okay. Amadou Diallo, Manuel Loggins Jr., Ronald Madison, Kendra James, Sean Bell, Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Alton Sterling, Sandra Bland, Akil Denkins, Gregory Gunn, Samuel Du Bois, Brendan Glenn, Freddie Gray, Natasha McKenna, Walter Scott, Christian Taylor, Ezell Ford, Oscar Grants, Laquan McDonald, Tamir Rice, Yvette Smith, Rekia Boyd, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, and so many others. Yeah, and you want to be yellow caution sign, white flag at the end of a stick, allowance to get up from your chair, slide between knees, disrupt the hair on the back of heads, balance your toes over innocent feet that have to contort out of your path. Curious eyes and a fixed gaze follow your clamor and watch you chunk the deuces to a ritual that has given you sanctuary, that has acquiesced to your wavering personality. How entitled are you? How vente mocha latte work from home in your PJs, airbook nanny for your only child are you? To want to escape without repercussion, dodge the tempest of awareness that comes from remembering what it's like to walk home in the dark after Pilates, newly gentrified part of town, or when you walked in on your mother on her knees in front of your stepfather with his 4 emergencies only firearm pointed at her head. You don't even know your arm is going to remember his grip, yet you want a church fingertip out before your monthly for the culture outing turns therapy fainting couch and tissue box, before it turns stolen journal read aloud. No one warned Sean Bell. Safe space, please. No one in a brown body is safe. No one gave a head nod to Tamir Rice, didn't say, hey, today the rec center might not be a good idea. There was no buck in the air or bullet on the ground kicking up dirt right short of his feet. Just 2 pieces of lead, zinc, copper science experiment straight to the torso. I mean, he even held on to the next day, was willing to take racism to the face, but you want to be told to exit before the tree falls on your car. Before you remember, you renovated a slave house with trust funds. A few words might remind you that the 4th glass of Malbec won't bring your brother back. A brown boy reminds you were $50 short this month, and you're going to spend the entire performance on the other side of the glass doors dragging on a Lucy. Poems are supposed to fun mirror your monsters. You're right. I could be acting like I've been ghosted by friends I called my sisters. So many times I just sage and move on. You're right, you could be wearing long sleeves the color of the cigarette burns shea butter couldn't fade. The very thought of walking to the Chevron for cool 100s in a box might make an involuntary tear dive out of the corner of your eye, but you're still here though. Unlike Sandra Bland, or Sean Bell, or Michael Sterling. Hey, do you think Rekia Boyd ate that day? Maybe Rekia was blowing off steam from biology lab. Maybe she was being cornered in the bathroom by upperclassmen that didn't like her shirt, or noticed she wore the same jeans twice in 1 week. Maybe her boyfriend just dumped her for the social media model with all the likes, and parents are signing divorce papers before mortgages. And she don't like the way her mama's new man looks at her. Now Rekia is recycled earth, and she don't get to jump into her homie's mama's car. Ain't no more hooky. Ain't no more settlement checks good enough for me. You should still get to scuttle out of the room because someone might take the safety off. Pepper spray your retinas, might say the word that makes you throw dishes against the wall, a can of Similac at the cabinet, an iron still plugged in against his chest, but you're still here though. And I ain't loading blanks. All my poems are going to be the first night alone in a new house, a hoodie in a dark hallway, a broken parking lot light, a Walmart during Christmas, a tall man approaching, heartburn in the shoulders, a glimpse of a gun in a waistband at a movie theater, in a crowded club, at a concert, in a library. Where were the warning signs for Kendra James, Sean Bell, Eric Gardner? What about Mr. Grant, executed cold blood? Step over a warm body? Step over a warm body? How is your balance? Tell them to bring the rope from the Texas jail cell, a gun from the corner store, the sniper from the playground, the shepherds from the elementary school, at the new black charter school. Tell them to bring their knives. Tell them to come fully loaded, because we, the poets, are the American canon. Thank you. All right, so we read a couple, and I talked a little bit, and for the people who came in a little bit later, we got to know each other a little bit, and told a little bit of my background, where I was from, and what I'm doing here. So we said after a couple pieces, we were going to talk about what has come up for you in those two pieces that I'm going to read y'all another couple stories. Anything, doesn't matter, just jump out. There's no wrong answers. How you interpret art is how you interpret art. I feel differently about Future's new song than you might, you know. So, I think Future's cute, but a little toxic. So, what came up for you guys? Any feelings at all? Any first thing you think of? Yes, just blurt it out.
So you initially mentioned that you don't believe in trigger warnings when it comes to your work. In the mental health field, they're changing a lot of words so that they're less harsh. And trigger is one of those. They might say, "Are you feeling elevated or activated?"
Oh, cool.
Like, what are your thoughts about trying to appease, but also wanting to be authentic to what you do in your work and sharing your story?
So I think this library job that I'm doing is a very good example of that. Because while I'm reading, I'm also editing over all the real curse words that are there, right? So I think that's my way to appease the job that I'm hired for, but also still read the work that I would have anyway. I love the change of words because trigger warning is already triggering to say trigger warning, because I think of trigger, right? Being from Detroit, living in the city of Atlanta, being in DC, Maryland, you know, it's just like, trigger is triggering, right? So I love that. I love that it's, you know, am I feeling elevated? And I shared before you came in that I deal with anxiety all the time, every day. It's, you know, I don't know, I wish I could snap my fingers and make it go away, but you do too? Yeah, and I was just asking my brother Micah, tomorrow I want to run the Cherry Blossom 10 miler, right? One, I'm not in shape to run 10 miles, although an avid runner. And I'm older now, so my back is starting to hurt and my knees are starting to hurt, and I've been running as an adult since '09. And then after the 10 miler, the DC Run Club, forgive me if that's not their correct name, but I think it's DC Run Crew or Run DC or something like that. They're throwing like a after day party, and my mind, my body, my spirit wants to go, but my anxiety is like, nah, you don't know anybody, you're here by yourself, you know, what if it's weird, what if you wear the wrong thing, you know, because I'm extra all the time, right? I'm a Leo, I'm an extra. So I'm just like, you know, what if, you know, all the what ifs are happening in my head as a 40-something-year-old woman. And I was talking to Micah like, you know, hey, dude, you know, should I go to this or not? He was like, hey, you know, that's really up to you. And, you know, I want to live my life. I don't want to just have the PTSD of running home and being comfortable on my couch and reading my book and watching Netflix. Because I know what will happen. If I decide to leave here this afternoon and go home, all day tomorrow, what am I going to be doing? What am I going to be doing tomorrow if I leave today? I'm going to be what? Shoulda did, having FOMO, what are they doing? I bet that day party's fun. That'd have been cool to meet some new runners. I would have been doing all of that, right? So it's something that I have to work through too. So in the mental health field, I was also telling them that I have been in therapy on and off, and still in therapy on and off since I was 7. And that's, you know, a long time. But I encourage it, especially if you need somebody to talk to, because I realized when I was in middle school, elementary school, high school, that my friends are not therapists. And they will not be your friends as long as you think they're going to be your friends. And then all of a sudden, with social media, your secrets are on Instagram. So which causes more anxiety, right? Happens. So, yeah. We call those, what, cyber bullies. And we don't want that. So thank you for your comment. So I think I do that a little bit. And I think it's fair to say, which is why I gave the comparison, if I was at a local open mic, I might spew what I'm going to spew. But if Coca-Cola has hired me, or has hired me, when Red Bull hired me, when Rockport hired me, when Reebok hired me, when United Way hired me, it's not the same, right? Because they're hiring you to do a job. When Montgomery Library Systems hire me, it's, you know, they're want me to come in and inspire, not just be like, da, 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 da.
So how do you do that when you're at the Reebok, and congratulations, by the way, with
Thank you.
all of your endeavors.
Thank you.
But how do you still show up authentically? Let's say something happens in the world that affects, you know, people of color. How do you show up in that space that's probably not predominantly brown or,
You write it in. And to me, I learned early on, you can still, remember when your mom used to say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it? You still write it in, but you write it in, so if Reebok came back and said, hey, we love what you did with our campaign program many years ago. We got new people. We want you to write another poem. We want you to do a commercial, right? There are Tank and the Bangers. Tank started off as a slam poet. She did a commercial for Hilton. So if Hilton or Marriott or any of the brands that I love, Lululemon, I was a brand ambassador for Lululemon. They didn't care. They were like, be yourself, you know what I mean? But if they asked me to come to their corporate office for their Christmas party, you can still write it in, but you also want it to resonate. I also want it to resonate. And I feel like, the F-bombs, the B-bombs, the MF-bombs, I think people turn off and they're like, yeah, I'm not listening. I'm about to go get some wine. Like, this is too much. But you can take all of those out, filter that out, and still write in the message. The message is, hey, Lululemon, there's not enough brown people in your campaigns. And then you, as your corporate person, that's not wrong. That's not a lie. And so if they turn away and they're like, then now you're racist. You know what I mean? Hey, you just admitted. But you want them to sit there and absorb that and think about that. And because also remember, even though we envision Lululemon, Rockport, Reebok as these big, huge, gigantic conglomerate companies, they're human beings who run these companies. And so if I have the opportunity, and I always, especially after 23 years, I always assume I'm never gonna see this set of group of people again. I may see y'all again, but it's never gonna be exactly this again. So I don't want to squander that opportunity to be inspiring and motivating, whatever and however that comes out. I'd rather you take that away and be like, she did talk about racism, abortion, people dying, but I'm not offended. I don't feel, I brought up Future because he has one song that I remember. It's about how he met a girl at the club. It's old too. It's probably 15 years old. What is the name of that song? Dang it, I think it's something with lights in the title. But anyway, I remember listening to the whole song like, nobody died, like nobody got shot in the club. No, there was no sexual assault. I was like, oh my God, this song is amazing. And I was just like, oh, ever since then it's been ridiculous. But, that is what I want to be as a poet, author, spoken word artist, professor. I don't want to go into my classroom and offend the students so that they turn off, but I do want to say, hey, you're at HBCU, you're at Clark Atlanta University, you need to take this opportunity. You're spending $45,000 a year, your parents are spending $45,000 a year. Be Black, be proud, represent us well, and go out and tell the rest of Georgia, how we can be better people.
So when I heard you, I thought about, I have an 11-year-old, and I feel like there's a lot of educational coddling that happens in school systems around ensuring that everyone's okay. We're all okay. So I personally, when I hear trigger warning, I think it's refreshing to just tell the truth about trauma, to be open and honest about the impact of that trauma. And I think the message is not so much, you don't have to cling to those events, there's multiple layers to me of that poem. But what resonates with me is like getting comfortable with the truth and how you feel and what you see. Right? Because another form of abuse is pretending like something didn't happen.
Oh,
right? So
I love that.
Water everything down. Gaslighting so that everyone feels okay. We can just say afterwards, like, that was impactful, or my heart is racing now, or like, let's get used to like just verbalizing those feelings instead of presuming that we all can handle it, or that children are so fragile that everything has to just be okay. And that's not the world, and kids learn resilience through practice, right? So I think for me, what resonated about that is multi-layered. But that just struck a chord with me because it's rare, I think, that young tweens, I'll say, get to hear the absolute truth. And then all of a sudden in middle school and high school, it's like, whoa. Or it's sheltered and then you go to an HBCU and it's like, whoa, where did this come from?
Exactly.
So I love that poem for just like, for the layers.
Good, thanks. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I love that another form of abuse is acting like something didn't happen. That's powerful. I love that a lot. Yes, for sure. Anybody else? Yes.
A lot of your poems you discuss like your struggles with like identity, especially as like biracial. How do you think your Cherokee identity informed those poems?
You know, I haven't addressed that a lot in my poems because I don't know much about it, and because my mother and father didn't meet my biological mother and father. So I don't know much about it except for what's written in my descendancy for my birth certificate. And I've been saying that I want to find out more about my Cherokee identity, but also with anxiety and ADHD comes time blindness. I don't know if you've heard that expression before. So time blindness is a real thing where you're like, oh, I need to leave by 2:30, and then you're like, oh, I can do this one thing, and then it's 4 o'clock, right? But it also happens in your life. So I've been saying that I'm gonna look into my Cherokee background for, I would say 2 years, but it's really probably been 20, right? So I'm like, every year I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna learn Spanish. I'm gonna do it, and then I get to the end of the year and I haven't learned Spanish any more than I've had anyway. You know what I mean? Or if I went on a trip or something like that. And it's a real thing. So I'm gonna write it down. I'm just gonna go ahead and find it and figure it out. So, and hopefully I want to identify with it more. I can see it in my face, in my skin color, in my hair. I would like to know more about it than just being black and white. So I appreciate that. What's your descendancy?
Oh, well, my mom's Asian and my dad's Sudanese.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. That's cool. I'm very awesome. All right, so I'm gonna read this story. This is brand new. Like, y'all are the second people to hear it ever in life. So this is a short story. It'll go faster than these papers are looking like a rope, trust me. So, have any of you been in a relationship or friendship? Because the friendship part happened to me just this week. It happened to me big a few years ago, and I was able to walk away from it and feel good about it. But earlier this week, I had problems with ending a friendship because I had anxiety that I was losing another friend. So I'm like, I'm losing another friend, right? So have you ever been in a relationship or friendship that you saw the red flags but did not end? Yes. All right. So this is funny, not funny story. The name of this poem is called, let's call it a short story. The name of this short story / poem is called When the Side Chick Flips the Script, or When the Side Chick Finally Makes It Out, or Inconsequential, or the LGBT version of the Risa Tisa Chronicles, or Turn the Tables. Did y'all see that on TikTok? Did y'all watch the Risa Tisa? Y'all gotta watch it or listen to. It's amazing. I hope she gets a movie deal off it. Anyway, it's Risa Tisa. Find her on TikTok. It's an amazing 50 chapters. You'll love it. You'll finish it in like 2 days. All right. So she was only drawn to broken things, like door hinges off an old rotting frame, houses that she could build from the ground up. If the foundation was too stable, she ain't want it. She had to be able to put her hands on it, be the hero, fly in for the rescue. Not like bills past due type rescue. Nah, that's too much like reality. Something she wasn't used to. More like emotional. Tell her you got daddy problems and she'll get you a new pair of stilettos. Temporarily make you feel like you're winning, like you got a magic 8-ball and insight to the next lottery ticket. Now you feel like you owe her because ain't nobody paid this kind of attention to me recently, and she did spend the money. And here's what ain't so funny. You think jumping the tracks is going to be different than all the drama with these other guys. Nah, trust me. These women got the same agenda. Where they learn it from, social media, and probably they're no good daddies, I'm guessing.
And she can see that you're new to this. You ain't a virgin, but you've been curious since college, and you slipped up and told her that you wanted to experiment. Good thing, because she got a woman, and she's on a business trip. She's never stepped out before, and the guilt would have been devastating, but she saw you across the room and just couldn't help it. Come on, you sound like you're full of it. But I get it. You ain't had a date worth posting since November pre-pandemic. And anything you did entertain was just placeholders. Just reasons to keep you under control until God sends you the one. You gave the explicit descriptions on Facebook, because that's where God is, right? Answering the prayers of all your haters. If you see one more wedding, if you weren't invited to, or one more baby picture from your high school friends having children on purpose, I've been where you're sitting. This is exciting. It starts with a few innocent text messages, then you graduate to emojis, and you can bet your LVs you'll get a grand rising at 7 every morning. Then casual lunch every time she's in town, picks you up from the job you normally hate every Friday in a new rental, but now you're getting to work early and smiling over your cubicle. You want to gossip, girl, guess what? But y'all just friends, right? Date night at a restaurant with strict dress codes, private dining, and you're not used to someone taking charge reservations and you don't need your credit cards. Girl, I know the feeling. Someone finally did all the planning, and you still ain't got a clue what her address is. Man, listen, I've spent restless nights telling my German Shepherd how my day went, and checking my text messages like a meth head looking for a lost prescription pad. 4 dating sites later, and no new notifications. So much for plenty of fish. And you figure DC Metro, Maryland's ratio is about 20 plus women to 1 available man, and that's not even considering who's cisgendered or waiting out a jail sentence. And it's hard out here for the codependent. You just want someone to swap location finders with. So when I met her, I reckon if we weren't intimate, I could convince myself there was a line I wasn't crossing. We could stay friends, and I could be her, her side buddy. Even told her that if she got permission from her woman, that I'd stay in my zip code. And you may have guessed that didn't float. Weekends ran into holidays, and all of a sudden, our seemingly cosmic connection became distant. And I noticed we stopped communicating every evening at 6 p.m. She said that her relationship was already near the end, and rest assured, it had nothing to do with me. They were already sleeping in separate bedrooms before we met, and she couldn't risk losing our connection. And if I would just chill out, play my position, and not cause any disruptions, I would be promoted to wifey from side chick. My rose-colored glasses shattered. It all came crashing in when I thought what I thought was the fairy tale I've been waiting my whole life for only worked because I was broken. I was at the bar drinking martinis looking defeated, and she spotted a black angel with a couple sprained wings. Not broken wings, just weary from all the guilt and emotional debt I was carrying. Offered me a splint and said she'd stay by me, would help me with all the burden of losing my family, and would put a cold cloth on my neck while I was healing. And I admit it, I was so dehydrated, I was willing to accept a sip, a small taste, instead of waiting for someone worthy, someone who believes vulnerability and accountability are the new sexy. She might have foot the bill for all the summer trips, but it was at my expense. The first time she told me she loved me, I was at my lowest. And thanks to my fresh out of Emory therapist who told me, if someone only feels closest to you while you're hurting, that's emotionally manipulating. And they're hoping to isolate you enough, no one will be around to remind you differently. And this ain't a story about low self-esteem. That's not what this is about. It's about living in a city where you gotta strategize your dating life against the law of averages, where we romanticize compromising your birthday, taking off the holidays and Valentine's. It's just another pagan holiday, right? So why are we crying? And you can say you knew what you was getting to all you want to, but did you? You set the boundaries, no hand holding and definitely no kissing. And now you remember all those times she said it wasn't fair to her or to you. And she can't leave right now because it's complicated. And they have a few business ventures that she don't want to mess up. And it'll take a while to remove her from all the bank accounts. And what she meant was she's selfish, bored at home, and you filled the void. And hey, ain't no judgment. If you decide to stay in a half-baked relationship, I did it. Convince myself that I'm working on my brand anyway. And you don't really have time for something serious. It's better with no commitment. And at this age, I just don't have the capacity for another failed relationship. Tired of forwarding my mail and changing my address. And there's stability in being lonely. Y'all can role play and pretend your colleagues on a work trip, someone checking on you sometimes is better than facing the emptiness. And if they forget, hey, at least it won't turn into an argument. They probably just fell asleep, and here you are in an oversized hotel suite, pretending like you're not waiting for the latch to slide back and for her to walk in. Eventually, you order room service, and loneliness is your reflection in the glass of the microwave. And all of a sudden, you snap out of it. Not because there's somebody else, because you're up to your lash extensions, and maybe just hold on for a little bit. And as soon as I can, I'll tell her about this. All right, well, guess what? Don't worry about it. You're still FaceTiming in the background, planning on how to get your key back and change your number without looking suspicious. The next couple of weeks, you tell her you got other plans and y'all can meet out in public. She don't like that a bit. Nothing hurts worse than loving someone you can't have, and you break the news, I've got a new apartment, and you don't need the address. And here peaks the horns of the two-headed narcissist. A new bag can't fix this. And every Michelin meal turns, well, toxic. The huge profession of love, tears on cue, how much you meant. And I was told, love don't list. But you want to count up all the money that you spent on all those shopping trips. You can have it all back if you just love me the way I told myself you did. Well, most of it. And I'm just exhausted of falling in love with potential. You could have been that film star if you would have just tried a little bit. You could have started your own business, but you let your grandmama convince you nobody's going to eat that vegan mess. So the player becomes the played, and we just end up with a whole bunch of fragmented relationships. People we wanted to trust but have no example of it. Every other song tells us we're disposable and a mere replacement for the one person that left us broken, and we've never learned to move past it, move past the past. Nietzsche tried to warn us. He who fights with monsters might take care to avoid the monsters they wish not to become. Let me break it down like this. You may not think it's psychological, but be careful who you call a side chick. You empower the name in which you call someone. And you can bet your IG status your sneaky link is learning to read, like when Jim Crow left too long and left the books out in the big house. Keep in mind, you're taking your time getting back to him or her. Whenever your schedule's not full, the tables will surely turn, and you'll be the one left on red feeling inconsequential. Uh-oh, who does that resonate with? First of all, yes, come on. You felt I was reading your life, reading your journal? Yeah. Move past the past. Mm-hmm. What else? What else stuck out for you? Love me the way I told myself that I thought you did. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else? Something come up for? You want to add something? No. Okay. No. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add anything? Why you keep looking at your mom?
Because I'm afraid to speak if I do a certain flooding. All of it come out. But all of it was especially
And like I said 3 times in that poem story, whatever we're gonna call it, I did it. I'm 49. I'll be 50 in August, and I was like, you know what? Hey, since I obviously can't seem to get a relationship right, then I guess part of one is better than none at all. And I'll just say it worked. it didn't work. It didn't work out. And, you could try to convince yourself, all you want to. And even, I'm talking about my friend, like even not romantically, like when you run across friends that you just don't have the fundamental values that are the same, it just is not going to happen. It's not. If you believe in red and they believe in blue, and no pun intended, but it's not going to work out. Yeah. Yes.
But like on the bus, we would ride the same bus, and then like actually this happened yesterday. I was just playing a game on my Chromebook, and then she started laughing. She started making a joke because of the game we were playing. For the game I was playing, I got a low score, and she started laughing at me, and then she started making fun of me for that. I got really annoyed at that moment. And when I went home,
You did what at the moment?
I felt really annoyed. I was crying. I didn't really cry because it wasn't really much of a deal.
Yeah.
But also that day, I was really ticked earlier because her tiny friend Hannah called me a booger, and I don't know why. I don't know why she did that because I'm like 5 feet taller than her. but like my mom always tells me like these little annoying kids, like after a while you're gonna be like, okay, why were you being mean to me again? Why was I upset again?
Yeah, why were you upset? Like, they're going to be so unimportant to you in a matter of minutes. And like I said earlier, they're just going to be that same person when they get older. I mean, unless they go through some healing and become better. Hopefully that happens, right? But I think they're struggling with identity. They're struggling with where they fit in and who they want to fit in with. And it's okay. I learned from an old friend that it doesn't matter why people don't want to be around you anymore. Just let them go. And I am not saying that I'm not going to be upset or cry or punch or go through all the trauma and healing that I need to go through. One, they don't need to see it. And two, just let them go. I have a mantra that I teach my students. Don't go where you're not loved, and go where you are loved. So if this group of people over here are like apples, and you don't like apples, don't go over there. It's cool. They can like apples all they want to. And you don't have to make fun of them for liking apples. You can be over here with the people who like oranges because you like oranges. It's cool. There are different tribes and different type of people all over the world, and you're going to find your people within people all the time. And it's okay. Like you said, you found new people in a matter of a day or two anyway. And people are always going to morph and change and, grow with you. So it's okay. Let Hannah and, who knows? It doesn't even matter why. It doesn't have anything to do with you. You should read the 4 Agreements. Well, all of you should, but it's a super small book, right? Ask your mom to get you the 4 Agreements. You can probably really find it online. It's super small. It's like this big. And one of the things it says in the 4 Agreements is it's not personal. It has nothing to do with you. I know they try to target you, right? They're beliefs. And unless they get help, unless they get some sort of mental health help, they're going to be bullies for the rest of their life.
I always tell people like when people are mad at being like bullying me, then it's because they just feel bad. They just feel bad. Sometimes she tells me like they just feel bad because they're not as tall as you, they're not as smart as you, they're not as pretty as you, they aren't pretty like you, and then they just want you to feel bad so they can feel happy.
Absolutely.
It's actually the saddest kind of way to feel happy.
Yep, it is. There is, I think, and I'm not a psychologist, but I think Freud actually talks about that there is sometimes people need something negative to fuel their life. Like, they cannot have quiet for too long. I remember that. I think I had to take psychology as like a core course. I'm not a psychologist at all, but I remember that. It really stood out to me. It's like, everything's good, and they're like, I gotta crash this vase. Like, it's too good, it's too good for long, I gotta destroy something. And that's just the, the type of people that they are. And I maybe resonated with that because I might feel like that sometimes myself, right? Things are going well, let me cause some drama. It's like, what is that? So don't worry about that. I have a line in one of my poems. It's actually kind of a hip hop rant. It says, "You hate my life because you hate your life." And basically the same thing you said, just wrapped up in it. You hate my life because you hate your life, basically. Same thing you said. Yep, that's it. So, all right, I'm gonna do one more, and then if you guys have any other questions for me, then we can have questions on that. I think we're doing a little bit of a Q&A, but I think we kind of did it anyway within this, which I really loved. Did y'all like this format? Was it okay? Yeah. Is that thumbs up, Michael?
Yeah.
Did you record the whole thing?
Pretty much.
I'm gonna chop this up for YouTube. It's gonna last like 6 months. So another thing about public speaking or doing poetry, if you mess up, nobody knows but you. You do not have to say, "Can I start over?" You don't have to say, "Oh, I'm going to stop and start." You don't even have to say anything. You can start over and repeat the whole thing. The audience will think it's part of the show. They'll think that it was supposed to be like that in the first place. They're like, "Oh, she's going back," or that's dope. Whatever it is. If you're singing, if you're doing hip hop, if you're doing comedy, even if the joke doesn't land right, just start it over. You don't have to be like, "Oh man, I messed that up. Let me start it over." Because nobody knows but you. Nobody knows your set. And even if your friends are hanging out with you and they have seen your set before, they know that you messed up. They're not gonna call you out. You just start over, and y'all will talk about it later. But that's it. So definitely try the vacuum. Close your mouth. If you can memorize it and say it with your mouth closed over your favorite song or while you're vacuuming, something loud. And so anything loud with your mouth closed. You can't word it. You can't mouth it. Then you have it mastered, memorized in your head. And then of course, hopefully your audience is comfortable like you all are, and you can make eye contact with people. If not, you can, look above their heads or to the back of the room. That's cool. Yes.
In your last call, you said a lot about historical relations. What kind of research do you put into creating?
That is an amazing question. A lot of times poets, they'll be like, "Oh, I have writer's block." I do not believe in writer's block. The reason I do not believe in writer's block is because when you have an idea that you don't have all the information for, you can always research it. Matter of fact, research is finding information that you didn't have in a reference that you didn't have initial access to. So you didn't know it, right? So if you wanted to, tell me your heritage again. So, what part of Asia, you said?
I'm
Chinese and Japanese. So, Okinawa. So, if you don't know anything about Okinawa, and you're like, first you go to Google, right? Literally, you could be like, what are top 10 amazing things about Okinawa, right? And then you could call your grandma. I'm just making assumptions. Say, "Grandma, tell me a story about when you fell in love," right? And so then you get pieces of information that you didn't have before. There's your research. And so what I like to do when I write a poem, I actually write it, and then I'll take notes at the bottom of that, and then when I get to memorizing and reading it, then I just print out my copy. But I always keep a master copy of where the research came from in case somebody asks, right? In case it needs to go to book, in case somebody wants to publish it, and they're like, "Well, where did you get that Okinawa has 4.2 million people?" Again, I'm making that up. But then you're like, "Oh, it was on da 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 da." So that way you always have that reference. So look it up, research, ask a friend, phone a friend, family member, and whatever ideas you have that you don't have enough development for on your own, do not be afraid to ask or to find it somewhere. And here's the library. Awesome. Yes. Any other questions before we get out of here?
Next segment.
There's an open mic at 3:30?
Here?
Yeah, in the same space, right? Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Can you talk about how the point, I'm making an assumption here, but where you may have been writing for yourself maybe early on, and the point in which you found the courage or the desire to then share your art so that it wasn't just for you anymore, or was it always for everyone else?
I don't know how you're going to receive this answer, but it's very shallow. It's gonna be a very
Okay.
shallow answer. This is not gonna be deep at all. This is not gonna be profound. It is not gonna be, you're not gonna be like, oh my God. This is gonna be a very shallow answer. It's when, so yes, so I journaled. I started journaling when I was 7. Would write folk songs. I love to sing. I typically sing time after time at the end of all my sets, but we've been here an hour and a half, so I figured I wanted to go. But anyway, long story short, so I sing a little bit, and I rap a little bit, and I was journaling. I was 7 years old, trying to get my dreams out, and right. So I go to college. I'm at Old Dominion University, and there's an open mic at a small art gallery, probably the size of like this square right here. And I read a poem the first week. It was every other Friday. So it's like you're anxious, like, oh man, it's two more weeks. Right? So I would go the first time and I read a poem, and it was cool, people clap, whatever. Next week, I think I had broken up with a boyfriend or something, and I wrote about that. And people hooped and hollered in the audience. I was like, I'll perform. From now on, that's it. I'm sharing everything. That was it. I was like, forget it. I'm getting on stage. That was it, boy. And that was it. That literally was it. I had all those years up to college. So I didn't even start college until 90. What did I write? So I didn't start college until I was 22. So from 7 to 22, writing for myself, maybe read, to friends or whatever, publishing, with nothing. Man, as soon as somebody claps, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this open mic. And then it was a fever. It was just feverish at the time. And just 23 years later, literally, and I would assume, Micah, that, we would run around trying to find 2-3 open mics a night. We would go find somewhere every night, be like, oh, that's a new poem, new story, I'm going, just trying, working things out, and so for me, vanity. But the reason to me, okay, so a real answer is, if you want to write and just for healing for yourself, cool. The fundamental or the foundation of that answer is somebody else resonated, and so then I learned that I'm not the only one going through whatever it was that I was going through, and maybe I can help. Because then over my career, what happens is I'll get matter of fact, I got a text message from a student who was I'm getting chills talking about it. From a student who was in my class pre-pandemic, even said I wouldn't remember him because he was shy, never participated. And I didn't have that many people in my poetry class. I think the max was 25. So probably if I saw him, I'll remember. But like when he said his name, I didn't remember it. And then he was like, because of you, he said, I was shy, I did not participate a lot. He said, I took your poetry class and it changed my life. I am now a high school teacher in, I think he said, Dallas. And I was like, it's just those moments, you never know when they're gonna come back around. You could get and that was a text message, so you could get a random email from, so I had emails from people who said that they kicked out their toxic ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, they kicked drugs, that they started working out, whatever, just because they were like, I didn't know that someone, and I'm gonna say this delicately, this is what they tell me, I didn't know someone that had your confidence, Sheba, who looks like you, could be broken. And so because you shared that you're broken, I'm no longer afraid to get help from my brokenness and do the things that I need to do for healing. So that is the fundamental, but you clap, boo, I'm coming back. So, yeah. But that's, people, and I didn't realize that nobody teaches clapping. Think about it. Nobody teaches you to clap, even when you're a baby. So babies, again, not a psychologist, people clap when they connect with whatever it is that you're connecting to. And it could be, a baby could have heard a song or anything, they just start putting their hands together. So nobody teaches you to clap. You clap, I don't know where it came from. We clap when we connect. And so that is what it did for me. So whoever that was in that audience that I don't know who that was 25 years ago, clapped and helped me connect with them, that they connected to what I was saying. And so it also made me, although she clapped because she didn't feel alone, her clapping made me then feel not alone. So I was like, oh yeah, it's a wrap. I'm going everywhere. I'm going worldwide. Let's do it. So yeah, I am a full-time spoken word artist, part-time professor at Clark Atlanta. I did, I always say it like it was a prison sentence. I did 5 years. I did 5 years face-to-face, but now I teach online at Southern New Hampshire and Clark Atlanta. So if I could ever come back to your library, high school, or university, family reunion, corporate gig, whatever I would love to. And I do DJ a little bit and have a live band if you ever want poetry with a live band. And Micah here is an amazing DJ and poet and works in the DC library system for almost 10 years. So if you ever need that connection over there, please do it and see